This is Chuck Cameron, Oxford Community TV, and the program is My Life. Today, we are in a beautiful place. We're with Mark and Jan Smith. We're at Maple Cove Bed and Breakfast,
Correct.
and I just had a wonderful cup of coffee, so thank you.
Strong, but good.
Excellent. So thanks for sitting with us to talk a bit about your lives. Mark, Jan, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We start with what's happening now, and then we drag you back a few decades, okay?
Yes.
So tell us a bit about what you're up to today. Why am I sitting in a wonderful, old, beautiful room? What is Maple Cove, and what are you doing here? Well, give me a couple of minutes on that, and then I'll drag you back.
Innkeeper?
Okay, so Maple Cove is a bed and breakfast that we started in 2016 from this beautiful house that we had purchased in the 90s, and spent years renovating and knew that it was the house for specifically that purpose. And today we continue to grow, we continue to think of new projects that we'd like to do, and we stay busy all the time because we have huge families and a lot of grandchildren.
That's a pretty good reason.
I think so too.
I think so. Anything from you on that one?
Well, I'm just the employee here. So I'm the handyman, the fix-it man. Whenever something like that is needed, I get the call. So, and I strive to be employee of the month, and it's between me, the chickens, and the dogs.
That's good company, though.
It is very good.
At least you're productive.
Yes.
Excellent. Good. All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure we'll hear more about Maple Cove Bed and Breakfast as we end this. But for starters, let me do what I warned you I would do. Let's drag you back. Jan, I'm going to start with you. Talk to
Okay.
me about growing up. I hear that you're a west side of the state girl.
I am.
Talk
Yes.
to me a little bit about where'd you grow up and what was life like at home?
Okay, so there was, at the time, there was 4 siblings, and when I was 10, my parents had a baby, which was very hard for the rest of us because I was the princess. And so I went to IHM. We lived in a neighborhood where street lights were the main thing. We knew exactly when to get home, and when we would go to our friend's house, it wasn't a knock on the door. It was Joni, and then they would come to the door, and off we would go to play. But we had a great, tight family. I went to a Catholic school just down the road. We walked everywhere. My mom didn't drive. And it was a wonderful growing up experience, although we didn't have pets. And that is another story for Mark at one time. But we weren't allowed pets.
No pets.
No pets, but everything else was pretty nice.
So what was it like at home? What was life like with mom and dad?
My dad traveled quite a bit. He was an accountant that would go to different businesses and fix them. And my mom was a nurse, a part-time nurse, and we just were, so we had a lot of fun when Dad was gone. I love you, Dad, but he was a little more strict. And Mom, we would eat watching Disney in front of the television on our little TV trays. And I remember coming home from school and watching Dark Shadows and whatever else we would do. But it was very close. We were a close fam.
Brothers, sisters?
There's 5 of us. So I have 1 sister and 3 brothers. As I said, my little brother came when I was 10 and my older brother was 17. So that took some getting used to, but yes. And everybody is now still, my old brother, 1 year older than me, is here, and my other 3 siblings are in Grand Rapids.
Got it. So you've got some family close.
I do, and I love it.
Excellent. Influences. When you were young, who would you say, whether it's mom or dad or teachers or neighbors, were people that had a pretty strong influence on you?
Well, my mom, for one, because she was always there. She made sure, even with working, that she was home for us when we got home from school. And we used to sit around our round table and, tell her about our day. And then my older brother, because when my mom was busy and with all the other siblings, my older brother is more my personality. We're a little more quiet, and believe it or not. And he was the one, he taught me to write. He taught me how to ride my bike. Nice. He was my another very good influence. So
Excellent. Sounds like a good family.
I know. Well, we did have some crazy fights between my 2 brother and sister, where he I don't know what happened, but they got into a fight and he jumped off our roof instead of just going out the door and running to the little mall down the street.
Yep.
And we all thought, you know, it was normal for them.
Kids are kids.
Kids are kids.
Kids are kids. All right. So that was home. School. Talked about school. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Immaculate Heart of Mary, which was a Catholic school, and it was probably, I don't even know how long. You know, as an adult, it seems like a long way to let your child walk to school, but everybody did it back then. And I was there till 6th grade, till I finished the 6th. And it was all nuns, no lay people, and I just remember it being a quiet, fun, you know, but very strict environment. And then when I came here to Rochester in 7th grade, I went to West Junior High. So the change was really a little difficult to adjust to at first, but I was so far ahead scholastically. And that's what I loved about our children going, you know, to a different school too. They were taught well.
Yep. Yep.
So
I've heard rumors that many nuns were pretty much strict folks
very.
who expected high standards.
Yes.
Was that
Yes,
the case with you?
yes, and corporal punishment was still, you know, happening then. So it was a little fear. You were afraid of the nuns. And the priest actually was super sweet. He'd come in and our eyes would just get big. It was like, the priest is here, you know, we're going to be okay.
You lived. Got it.
We lived, yes.
And then you came out here in 7th grade.
I did. I went
Big change.
big change to a public school, and where we lived right behind West Junior High. So I walked there, but it was so much different. I'm like, this is nothing. And just having, you know, that different environment of not wearing a uniform and just a much easier pace scholastically was a big change for me.
Got it.
By the time I got to high school, though, I was acclimated very well.
Got it. And which high school?
Adams.
Adams. Yep. Okay. When you were in high school, what'd you do?
I played softball and basketball, and I ran track one year, but I hated it, so that's why softball became it. And I didn't really do anything as far as outside. I worked. I coached for Rara, which basketball, and I just had some really good girlfriends, and we just did a lot together outside of school.
Folks in high school who may have affected you, he give you good guidance, helped you, influence you to become a better person.
Yes, I had my basketball coach. She was also our gym teacher. Her name was Jenny Sikora. And she was funny and just like you would run to her office when things didn't go well. You know, it was just one of those women that was very nurturing, and she was a calming station, yes, for us.
Excellent. All right. So you're in high school. Did you have any aspirations about what was going to happen after high school at that point?
No, I knew I was going to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do at that point. I ended up working at a restaurant right after high school. I worked at Landmark, and I met many police officers who would come in.
Yep.
And then that's what I decided to do. So I went to OCC for criminal justice.
Got it. Got it. Well, we're gonna take a little break. When we come back, we'll talk to this young man who you're sitting next
Yes.
to about your start. All right? So you stay tuned with us. We're gonna come back in a little bit.
When a crisis hits, close to home and across the globe, nonprofits are on the front lines, ready to serve.
Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming.
The demand for charitable services has skyrocketed, and nonprofits are rising to meet the needs. Healing, nurturing, rescuing, honoring, protecting, caring, inspiring. The work of philanthropic organizations of all sizes, across all missions, has never been more important. And it's donors and volunteers like you who make all this possible. Thank you. Together, we change the world. the Nonprofit Alliance.
Okay, we're back. Let's take a look at Mark. Mark, you're sitting quietly on the couch, doing a fine job of representing the male half of your team. Let's talk about you. Take me back. Where'd you grow up?
So I was born in Addison Township.
Yeah.
My father still lives in the home that he and my mother moved into in 1958.
Wow.
So other than a couple of years when I moved out after high school and lived in Rochester, I have lived in Addison Township all my life.
Local boy.
Local.
Makes good, clearly.
Yes.
Excellent. What's it like being a small town person? It's a different world than being city, right?
It is a different world. Although my father's business was in Rochester, so it took us to the city. But out here, there were far fewer neighbors, much farther in between, very few children. So we had a couple of close families when we grew up, but that was the extent of friends. But we certainly did very well as children and had wonderful times. We would get on our bikes or get on our horses, and we could pack a lunch and leave in the morning and just know we had to be home by 6 o'clock at night for dinner. And we could ride all over the back roads of Addison Township. We rode to the proving grounds, the Ford proving grounds. We would go all over. It was really quite wonderful, and nobody worried about us. And it was really quite an experience as a child to be able to have that freedom.
I am officially jealous. Yeah. Wow, that sounds great. What was life like at home? Any brothers and sisters?
So I have a brother and a sister.
Okay.
And home was busy. We also had 6,000 chickens.
That'll keep you busy.
Yep, my parents had 6,000 laying hens, and it's at the Little Red Hen Poultry Farm at Brewer and Rochester Road. Yep. There was a lot of work. There were a lot of chores. Sure. There was a lot of play, a lot of fun, a lot of what seemed to be play was probably more education as we were growing up too, which was wonderful. My mother would have all the neighbor children over and bake cookies or make cakes, or we would carol at Christmas time at the few neighborhood houses we had.
Right.
It was really quite special. So,
what were mom and dad like?
Well, mom was a homemaker. That was her job. She was very meticulous about being clean. Sometimes we thought too much. We thought, a home needs to be clean enough to be healthy, but messy enough to be happy. But she was very, very meticulous about that, and always cared for others before she cared for herself, which was quite a trait for someone. Dad was worked very hard, but he also enjoyed time off and time with the children, and we had a lot of great times up north. They had a place up north for a while.
Whereabouts?
It was near Gladwin. So, wasn't too terribly far away, but in those days speed limits were 55. It was a longer drive than it is today.
It takes longer to get there.
It does.
55 was about 58 as
Yes.
opposed to 70, which is 80.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
So you said you had family.
Yes.
What was it like being in your home with your family? What was your role? What was your part? What kind of a boy were you?
Boy, that's probably a better question to ask my brother, but hopefully I
I'll
wasn't
call him.
too hard on him. We got along most of the time, as children do. There were times when we didn't, but we rode a lot of motorcycles together, snowmobiles, played a lot outside, a lot of baseball with the neighbor children. Hopefully I was a positive role model being the older brother. They're both younger than I am. My mother had a very good routine, for breakfast in the morning anyway. I could still tell you what it was. Monday mornings was fried eggs. Tuesday mornings was French toast. Wednesday was cold cereal. Thursday was pancakes. And Friday was scrambled eggs every day.
That's great.
And she made 5 to 7 loaves of bread every week. She homemade all of our bread. So, yeah. So we learned routine.
I'm thinking you were well fed too.
I was well fed. Yes,
That's
indeed.
right. Do you still enjoy good food?
I do. In fact, Jan and I tend to look for unique places sometimes to eat and enjoy new and unique things. I mean, I still like to go to a Coney Island too. I can cover all ends of the spectrum.
Got it. School. Where'd you go to school?
So St. John Rochester is where I attended school, grade school.
How'd you get there?
Well,
Bus?
because we lived out here and we're really in the Romeo School District, Dad used to drive us in every day on his way to work
Okay.
until one of us got our driver's license, and then we were driving ourselves. But
Influential people, folks who caused you to either steer closer to the right path or at least away from the wrong path.
so at St. John, there were probably 3 or 4 teachers in particular during my time there that really had an influence on me, along with 2 pastors. So that was a great someone to look up to and follow. Also, my father, we used to go to work and stuff, and I always looked up to my dad, and I always wanted to go to work with him. It was more fun than it was work. And the people that he had working for him were a good influence too. They were all hard workers and honest people. And so that's where most of my influences came from.
Sounds like solid influence to me.
Indeed.
Got it. Okay. What was high school like?
So high school, I attended Lutheran High North, which is at Romeo Plank in 24 Mile. It was quite a drive away. And it was a very small school at that time. My class was 69, and it was the 3rd class in the school. So I had wonderful, close friends there. I didn't play a lot of sports. I started working for my dad in the summer after I got out of 8th grade at St. John. And I did play baseball and football my first year, but really wasn't a sports person. So I went to work after school. I
What'd you
enjoyed
do?
work. My father owned Rochester Elevator.
Yes, right in town.
Yes, the Big Red Barn.
The Big Red Barn.
Yes, so that is where I grew up. His dad went there in 1956, and our family had been there ever since until just recently.
You make me smile because I've driven by that building many times, and it's so interesting. It's such a grand. My heart goes, what's going on here? What was this? And now you tell me a little bit about that. That's good.
Yep, it was. My dad took in grain from farmers until the early 70s, and he continued to make feed, and he kind of adjusted. Rochester became a more suburban market, less agriculture, and he adjusted to selling people eggs that he raised and fertilizer and grass seed and water softener salt, and he made a good transition. Many don't. So
Yeah, change is not always easy,
it is not.
but it always comes.
Yes, it does.
Outstanding. All right. So, when you were there, when you were young, could you look ahead and get any idea what you wanted to be when you grow up?
Well, there were some dreams. Initially, I thought I might attend the Air Force Academy, and so I had my pilot's license when I was in high school.
Did you?
Then I hurt my back, and that didn't work out, so I went to mortuary school, or I didn't go to mortuary school. I considered mortuary science, decided against that, and just wanted to work. So I stayed with my father.
Got it. Sounds like a good decision, was it?
It was.
Excellent. Is your dad still with us?
He is.
Excellent. Is he still working?
He still goes into work. My sister helps him. He has vision difficulties, but yes, he is still there, and we still use his wisdom frequently.
Got it. And how old is dad?
86.
86. So he's starting to, another 10 or 15 years, need to start to slow down.
Yes, yes, indeed.
All right. You're blessed to have somebody like that in your life still.
We are.
To be strong and going. Okay. All right.
Indeed.
Well, we'll take a look at the next chapters of your life. We're going to take a little break. Stay with us. We're going to take a look at the rest of your life when we come back. So don't go away. But you won't go away, right?
No, we can't.
You don't go away. We'll be back. Stay tuned. back. We've got these two out of being youngins, out of high school. So, Jan, start with me. What did you do out of high school? You started talking about a little bit about law enforcement. Let's
Yes.
pick that up.
Okay.
Why law enforcement? And what'd you do? And how'd you do it? And who helped steer you in the right direction?
All right. So right after high school, I got a job at the restaurant as a waitress, and many of the police officers, Oakland County sheriffs, would come in, and I got to know a few of them, and I thought, that looks exciting. Plus, you know, my dad was always watching police shows and Charlie's Angels and all that great stuff. And I'm like, I can do that, even though I believe it or not, I was a shy person. So I thought, well, I can try. So I started going to OCC with them saying, oh, you'll love it. And they would come to the house, and because we had ride-alongs. And so they would come to the house, and I still remember one time when I told Mom, the police are going to come and pick me up because I have a ride-along to do. And sure enough, they came with lights flashing, and my mom was like, what are the neighbors going to say? And then, of course, I walk out, and I'm trying to get in the front, and they're like, go in the back. And I'm like, I'm not going in the back. So I loved it. I just had so much fun with them. I do remember going on a high-speed chase, and we finally caught him, and it was someone I had gone to high school with. So it was a little embarrassing. So I had to write his ticket, and he had like the racing cap on and his little gloves, and I just was like, okay. But when I really found out after 2 years that I would be doing, as a woman back in the late 70s, I would be doing a lot of ticket writing and paperwork and meter mating, and I thought, nah. So my mom and dad sat down with me and said, listen, you know, OCC, I was missing a lot of classes because I wanted to work. I loved working. And I decided to go to Northern Michigan University, which is a long ways. And I went into criminal justice, but with a juvenile deterrence instead. And I did like that. I thought that was something that I could do. I loved that program, and I just thought, you know, social work was kind of my thing. That's really where I realized I love people. I like the whole aspect of providing a quiet space, helping. I'm a people pleaser, and I fell into that role. I had a great teacher. I don't remember his name, a professor. He was a social worker, and it was a good fit for me. I would come home, Mark and I, and you do the story better, how we met and everything, but I would come home for a weekend to see Mark, and I didn't care that you couldn't even see in front of your face. My roommate was someone I had gone to high school with, and we would drive, it would take us 10 hours, and I just kept telling her, Susie, if you see a mailbox too close to your side of the car, tell me, because I'll move back over on the road. And we all did that. Everybody came home. And then I graduated. I loved it. I had fun. The only thing I had an issue with at college is when I was at OCC, you know, I lived in an apartment with friends, and I didn't have enough credits to move off campus. So as an older student, I had to live in the dorms. And I lived in an all-girl dorm, Spalding, at Northern, and I didn't acclimate well to the noise. And, you know, I had 2 roommates. They were lovely people, but man, it was a different lifestyle for me. So I couldn't wait to move off. And once I moved off campus with my friends, it was beautiful.
That's good.
I continued to work. The boys next door were in a band, so it was really fun because we would go around and see the Queen City Rockers wherever they played. And I graduated in '80 and came home and couldn't get a job in my field.
Really?
Nope. I could if I wanted to work in the women's prison, but that wasn't where I wanted to land. So I did many things, Mark. I was receptionist at a tennis house. I taught exercise for a weight loss doctor. I found whatever I could at that point, and then eventually did cosmetology school because I was always cutting everybody's hair up at school. And I just realized that hospitality and, you know, people, that was my thing, and that led me here.
Got it. What would you say to folks who wonder whether or not a college education is valuable to get when it doesn't necessarily guarantee a job? What would you say to folks like that?
You know, I've talked to many people about that, and my older brother Dave, he just kept saying, when you go to school, you know, you go to college, first of all, you're taking more than just your core classes. So you're continuing to learn whatever you know, whatever they teach you. And it just proves to whoever, a boss or a client, whatever, that you had a goal and you accomplished it. But Mark is the smartest man I know, and he didn't go to college. So that's why, like today, you don't always have to go to college to do what you want to do.
Couldn't agree more. It opens doors that sometimes can't be opened otherwise,
Right.
but it's not a guarantee of anything.
And that was one of the biggest things when I was looking for a job. Mark's, who was the judge? Bernard? I went to see him, and he just said, Jan, you're going to find this. Everybody wants experience. And how can you get experience if you can't get a job? So it just, I had so many closed doors to work where I wanted to work. So
If you could go back, would you do the same path?
no, I would not. And my parents were so loving too. I'm like, I'm going to go into law enforcement. And I'm sure they're going, oh my gosh, you? I would have done something. I would have done business or, you know, anything but that.
But you did, and sounds like you've had a pretty good life of it.
Yes, I have.
Good.
And I probably learned things there in that field that I would not have in a different field. And I think it brought me more out of my shell and gave me a little more strength.
Now, you could have half-handed off to Mark the fact that you two met. I'm presuming that you met sometime along the way.
Yes.
Do you want to touch on that? We're gonna pick up in another segment, but do you want to touch on how you two met? Did you defer that one to him?
I'm deferring to Mark because it's a better story.
So, how'd you meet this young lady?
We had a large group of mutual friends, and some of them wanted to join a mixed doubles bowling league one summer. So we joined the league. She was on the league, and I was on the. We really didn't know each other at that point. I had seen her once before, but we had not formally been introduced. And we were on the same team. And through the course of the summer, we kind of came to know each other, become friends, enjoy each other's company. And then one of our mutual friends was getting married in the fall, so I asked her to join me at the wedding. And as they say, the rest is history. So
Sounds like a good start.
it was, yes.
So how did she, who was in West Michigan and then way up north, get over to our side of the state? Maybe I should let she answer that.
Yes.
How'd you get over here?
Well, we moved here.
That's right. You said.
Dad had got a job with Pat Moran, and so we moved to Rochester.
Got it.
But I remember Mark telling me that he met me when I lived in an apartment with a girlfriend, and I don't remember meeting him. I'm so sorry, Mark.
Made a good first impression, didn't I?
Clearly. But you didn't scare her off.
No, I did not scare her off
a
either. That's
positive.
right.
All right. So you two, we've established that you two have met, and we've established that you two, we're guessing now that you two have had it's a pretty good run so far. All right. Well, now we're going to leave them dangling here. We're going to tell you who are watching this thing to stay tuned, because we're going to be back with Mark and Jan to figure out what the rest of the story is. Paul Harvey's famous line.
Yeah.
We'll look at the rest of the story. You stay tuned, and we'll see you next time when we continue with the program My Life. OCTV, Chuck Cameron, stay tuned.